And so I will tread sensitively, but I just want to speak from the heart as an Irishman. And I also want to acknowledge the sensitivity of what I'm going to ask you to consider to do as a foreign citizen to this country. I come from a small island just off the Atlantic that experienced centuries of violence and sectarian violence, of terror, that was brought to a political end and a diplomatic end, that was helped by the investment of international efforts, namely and primarily an investment by the United States in the peace talks in the early 1990s, which led to the Good Friday Agreement. Yesterday, the UN General Assembly came to a resolution on what it called the protection of civilians and legal and humanitarian obligations. And a General Assembly ruling is non-binding. There is other resolutions over the last few weeks which involved a humanitarian pause or a ceasefire for the aggressions that are happening at the moment in the Middle East and in Gaza. And as you know, and I don't need to repeat to you, I don't need to tell you what we've been seeing on our screens since the nightmare of October the 7th is nightmare after nightmare, day after day. But yesterday, and why I say this, is that of course in that resolution yesterday, the United States voted against that resolution and has a permanent seat on the Security Council and has been voting against a humanitarian pause and a ceasefire. And so I say this coming from my part of the world. I understand and I do believe what an international involvement can mean. I understand that currently there's about 18 members of the House of Congress that are in favour of a ceasefire at this time. And there is so much energies of hopelessness and powerlessness in a moment like this. But all I would say is that in our respective democracies, we do have representation. We have representation on the domestic stage and on the world stage. And all I would ask you to consider doing, if you feel the same way and would love to see a ceasefire at this time, is to contact your representatives and to ask them to represent you in your compassion, to represent you in our collective compassion, in our collective grief, in our collective sorrow, in what we've been seeing since the nightmare of October 7th. And that's all I would like to say. And again, I say that as somebody who comes from a country, I was raised in an island that was peaceful, and it was due to the involvement of the international community, but especially the Bill Clinton administration at the time and US involvement. So thank you for that, and thank you for